What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian from House of Wrestling, and yes, it's dream matches. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So, this dream match, man, oh man, it has been a dream match for, man, ever since August of 2020 when Roman Reigns turned heel. But it's extended now lately with the Bloodline and the Elite. And yes, that is the dream match. The Bloodline and the Elite, Roman Reigns and the Usos versus Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Ooh, man, that's WrestleMania Forbidden Door type main event. That's a multi-mega main event, if there's such a word as multi-mega or anything like that. But just thinking of those six guys in the ring, main event, just thinking of the build-up, the promos, thinking of, man, what if this dream match takes place in WWE? How would it be presented? Vice versa. Man, what if Roman Reigns and the Bloodline was in AEW? How would it take place? Those are interesting things. And again, of course, this is all fantasy and dream and all that other stuff that we as fans always talk about. Of course, many people put it on WWE 2K22, and they have the community creations characters of Omega and the Young Bucks against Roman Reigns and the Usos. And shout out to those community creation users that upload those images on WWE 2K. That, man, I think some of those people are the game developers because, man, that is too detailed, man. That is really good. But, man, getting back to this dream match, just thinking of the build-up, thinking of right now in professional wrestling where both these factions stand. Of course, the Young Bucks and Omega, they're in the best of 7 match series with the Death Triangle for the Trios title, and I believe they're headed into game 6, match 6 this Wednesday. Mind you, this recording is taking place December 26th of 2022, so it is the week of match 6. So that aspect, and then of course with the Bloodline, you have Roman Reigns, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, Sami Zayn. They're having a battle with Kevin Owens and John Cena this Friday on SmackDown, January 30th, the last SmackDown of 2022. So just seeing where these factions are at in their current spot, and man, just fantasy booking and just thinking of just the first, let's say let's go with WWE first. Can you imagine, the Bloodline, like always, the Bloodline's always got, promos beginning of Raw or SmackDown, and let's say it's SmackDown, and you have Roman talking and everything, and then hypothetically, fantasy booking, the Elite's Wayward Song song comes on, and you just see the psychedelic thing, and then the Elite comes on, and then you have Omega and the Young Bucks come out, and just thinking of the crowd popping and everything, and you have the Usos and Roman Reigns like, oh, okay, all right, and just again, every promotion does this, that first shot of Omega and Roman Reigns coming face to face, and then you have the Young Bucks and the Usos coming face to face, and you have all 6 men just face off, and just letting the crowd just get into it. It's just like, oh man, just thinking of that is just, oh man, it's so good. And just thinking of, on the flip side, Omega and the Young Bucks are in AEW, and hypothetically, fantasy speaking, Roman Reigns' music hits, and he comes out with the Bloodline. And just knowing that AEW crowd is a very rabid, energetic, electric crowd, That is gonna like both. Just thinking of both instances of the one and the other appearing on either AEW or WWE shows, and just that's some good TV, man. That is like some man. That is some gold TV of just watching that unfold. Fantasy thinking, okay? If you're watching this, I'm not saying the Elite are going to WWE or vice versa. The Bloodlines are going to AEW. This is just fantasy booking. If that ever were to happen, that WWE and AEW working together, and we get that, whew, that's beyond Christmas, man. That's whew, man, that's so good. But man, just thinking of how Roman would work with Omega and Omega would work with Roman, and seeing the Young Bucks and the Usos, like that's a very interesting dynamic of the Young Bucks being high flyers, the Usos being more of a kind of a high flyer, could say technical, kind of. I don't know. Comment below what you guys think. But just thinking of that dynamic, and then of course Roman facing one of the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega facing either Jamie and Jey Uso. That's an interesting dynamic. Just thinking of how that would wrestle, and just like overall, me personally, I think if that match were to ever happen, that would be one of the top 10 greatest matches in the last 20 years because of the skill set that all six men have, the dynamic, the creativity that they would include in the match. And if I know there's people that just, oh, the Young Bucks, oh, they're garbage. But if you look at the creativity that they've done against the Death Triangle so far, going into match 6, every match isn't the same. And looking at the creativity that Jimmy and Jey Uso has done in the last, man, 4 years, 3 years, considering when Roman turned heel, and just looking their creativity, and then looking at Roman Reigns' creativity as a heel, and looking at Kenny Omega's creativity since he's was elevated to the AEW main event scene. He's always been a main eventer in New Japan and everything, but just seeing how he's been more creative with his since he was elevated in the main event scene, and just seeing the growth of creativity that all 6 of these competitors and these wrestlers have done in the last 3 years, and just the wrestlers who wrestle against them, like they become even better. Like it just takes the match to another level, and man, it's so fun to think about. And I don't know who would win. I think, of course, if it's WWE, Bloodline wins, and if it's AEW, they might let the Bloodline or Omega win, or the the Elite win. But man, it's so interesting to think about, and just again, the build, the crowd reaction, the promos. Would there be any shenanigans with Solo Sikoa? Hey, Paul. This is the wild card. Paul Heyman and Don Callis. Like that's another thing about this matchup that it just came to my head right now, is that you have history with Don Callis and Paul Heyman from ECW, of Don Callis being the network towards the end of ECW's run, and him feuding with Paul Heyman. So you have that dynamic along with the Bloodline versus the Elite. So that's a whole nother dynamic. And then of course you have Solo Sikoa, which is the Enforcer, and then you have Michael Kawasaki and Brandon Cutler, which Solo Sikoa would just mop them and everything. But you have that dynamic, which is really interesting to think about. The promo and the exchange between Don Callis and Paul Heyman. Don Callis was hyping up Kenny Omega. Paul Heyman's been hyping up Roman Reigns and the Usos, and just that whole dynamic, man. That's really cool to think about, and man, that's so fun to think about. Like, man, what if that ever happened? Will that ever happen? Don Callis and the Elite, Paul Heyman and the Bloodline. That whole thing, like just thinking about it, like that's really cool to fantasize. And That's a best of 7 that I would not mind. Like, I don't recall. And correct me if I'm wrong. Comment below if the Usos have been. I believe they were in a best of 5 series or something like that, tag team wise. I don't know. Comment below, but if they were in a best of 5 or 7, the Usos and Roman Reigns with the Elite, man, that would be good. That would be so good. You would, me personally, if it was that case, I believe it would take Roman Reigns and the Usos to another level of creativity as wrestlers. That if that match ever happened, like, oh man, like you don't want to have the same match over and over again. And working with guys again like Omega and the Young Bucks, there's so much creativity that's going to be there. And just thinking of hey, what if this was at a, I don't know if it would be at a Royal Rumble, I don't know, Rumble, WrestleMania, but I could definitely see it at a SummerSlam as being like trios match. Like that would be pretty cool. In a stadium, that would be amazing. Um, that a match like that does deserve to be in the stadium. So I would, man, how would I say? I would want, if this match were to ever happen, I would want it in a WWE size stadium venue, but I would want that AEW crowd. Like if you could give me both of those and just give me a little hybrid of the presentation of AEW and WWE together for this matchup, man, that's gold. That's gold, and that's fun, man. That is fun, man. Ooh, man, thinking about it. But man, getting to the in-ring work, again, the Young Bucks and their super kicks and the Usos super kicks, how would it play out? Omega's V trigger, Roman Reigns super punch and spear. Like, how would that mesh together? Like, that's the beautiful thing about this dream match is there's so many components and elements and counters and Kenny Omega when he Irish whips someone to the turnbuckle and he does that quick snapdragon suplex and man, the Young Bucks and their Meltzer driver and when their double team moves and the Usos, like man, it's so fun to think about. And man, I hope one day we do get this dream match of the Bloodline versus the Elite because man, I think that's the beautiful thing about pro wrestling in 2022 going into 2023 that right now, of course, that'll never happen. But as 2022 has played out, like anything is possible. So, man, if there was ever a day that WWE and AEW would work together, man, this is one match that I would love to see be the main event. Give me this match, main event. So beautiful. And again, thinking of all the opponents that Roman Reigns has faced, like he's never faced someone like Kenny Omega, and vice versa. Kenny Omega has never faced anyone like Roman Reigns, and their skill sets are so unique and so captivating and thrilling. Of course, Omega in his series of matches against Okada, and of course Roman Reigns in his series of matches against Brock Lesnar. Like that's just a very unique dynamic between those guys. And then you add on the Young Bucks and the Usos, their battles with the New Day. Then you have the Young Bucks and, as I was preparing for this dream match, I was like, wow, they've been tag team champions for 17 different promotions. Like, whoa, like that's an interesting fact. And yes, that is true. You can look it up. Man, it's so cool to think about and just that dynamic with man, the Bloodline versus the Elite, Don Callis helping the Elite, Paul Heyman helping the Bloodline, the promos between those two guys, the build up, the AEW side, and of course we know there's changes with the presentation with AEW. Man, can you imagine the Bloodline coming out to that? Vice versa, Bloodline doing their thing on SmackDown and Raw. The Elite come out, just that whole build up and dynamic, and ooh, man, that would be so good. But let me know what you guys think of this dream match between the Elite and the Bloodline. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Man, I really want to see this match played out. Like, I want to see if anybody's done this on. I gotta check YouTube and see somebody's uploaded a freaking Bloodline versus the Elite match on like WWE 2K or something like that. And guess what? It might act. I wouldn't be surprised if some people do that on AEW Fight Forever, where they put Roman Reigns and the Bloodline on AEW. And that would be. I'm glad there's another wrestling game from a different wrestling company, because that was the beauty of the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, that was the beauty of it. But man, that'd be a wonderful match, man. Let's see what happens in 2023. So with that, I'm out.